Hi, welcome back to English 111 Online. This week we're going to write the rest of our essay. We've already got the introduction paragraph with the thesis statement done, and so now we're ready to knock out our two body paragraphs and a conclusion paragraph and send it off to Smart Thinking for some feedback. You can also make an appointment with the English studio here on campus if you'd rather have that face-to-face experience. But I'm going to show you how to use smart thinking and everything as well. I put this up here, Rosa Guerra saying, America is a nation of immigrants. All of us are immigrants. The only ones that are not immigrants are the Native Americans. Everybody came from somewhere else, and how quickly we forget. And we do indeed. Let me go ahead and make that visible because it wasn't visible. Now it is. All right. So I still have the assignment sheet on here this week if you want to look back at that. I also have this document that we've been working on with how to write an MLA formatted essay. So we've done our introduction, and then we're ready for the body paragraphs. It says, depending on your thesis, you must have at least two separate body paragraphs that have topic sentences that relate to your thesis. So if you mention more points in your thesis, like if you do all three, pathos, ethos, and logos, you'll have three body paragraphs. A topic sentence would be an example. One way the authors, highlight that for you. One way the authors successfully convince their readers that immigrants live as others is by using pathos. And then you want to go on and support your topic sentence with an explanation of what you mean by that. Give a definition of what pathos is, and give examples from the text that shows an example of pathos, and then your own commentary where you will tell your reader what this all means about being convincing. How do you know it's convincing? Well, what about it convinced you? You must bring in evidence from the assigned reading to back up the points you're making, and the evidence needs to be iced. And by ice, I mean introduce it with a signal phrase that mentions the article from which the evidence is taken, cite the information from the article correctly, and if it is word for word, put it in quotation marks. Quote pair punk, if you mention the article in the sentence, you need a parenthetical at the end with the author's name and page number from which you got the quotation. And if you mention the author's name in the sentence or in the essay, as this only has one source, then you just put the page number in. And that's what we're going to do, just put the page numbers in, because we have already introduced our author's name in the first paragraph, which was the introduction paragraph. And then after bringing in the evidence, you must explain how this helps make the point that you are trying to make, that it is convincing. Don't say this quotation means, explain how it relates to your thesis. Like the reason this example of pathos is convincing is because blah, 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 whatever you're going to put in there. And then after you finish your two or three, depending on how many you want to do, body paragraphs, you'll be ready for the conclusion paragraph. And the conclusion paragraph starts the opposite of the introduction paragraph. In the introduction paragraph, we start broadly and narrow our point down to our thesis. In the conclusion paragraph, we start with the point and then broaden it back out to a final statement that just leaves the reader something to think about. You can relate it back to your attention getter, and that would be even better. I've got the directions here. You will have a conclusion that reminds the reader of your thesis and leaves the reader thinking about the point that you're trying to make. Restate your thesis. In other words, they need to say the same thing without being word for word the same. They're first cousins, not identical twins, but they do repeat the same idea. Summarize the points that you made in the body paragraphs. Remind the reader of what they have already read, not bringing in specific details as you did in the body paragraphs, but just generally the ideas. Mention pathos and why it's convincing. Mention logos and why it's convincing. And give a full sentence to each idea from the body paragraphs. In other words, give a full sentence to the pathos or the ethos or whatever you happen to use instead of putting it in. Don't just list the ideas. And end with a comment that can tie back to the attention getter or that leaves some broad statement that gives your reader something to think about that relates to, of course, not a new topic at all, but the same topic that you've been discussing in your essay. You've got to have a works cited page with a correct works cited entry, author's last name, author's first name, title of article in quotation marks, Rereading America, Cultural Context for Critical Thinking and Writing in italics, 12th edition, publishers information, Bedford St. Martin's 2022, and then ending with your page numbers. And the page numbers for this one are page 65 through 73. I've read it so much I know the page numbers by heart. It must be in hanging indent form, and there's only one source for this essay, but we're still going to call the page works cited with an S on it. So it's still going to say works cited, even though we're only citing one work. There's a little outline that you can use to make sure you have everything correct in your essay, in your rough draft. So we're just putting together a rough draft this week. After you get your rough draft put together, you can look at these instructions here about how to submit to Smart Thinking. Click on it. It's going to give you the step-by-step with screenshots of what everything looks like. I think you should be able to follow that and do a good job of it. When you are, you're going to be asked at some point to explain what the assignment is, and when you do that, this is the thing for Core Project 1. There's also instructions for Core Project 3 when we get to that, but for right now you just need this. Just copy it and paste it into your Smart Thinking cover sheet that you're going to send it in on. So that's pretty helpful to you to let you see how to go through and submit to Smart Thinking. After you submit to Smart Thinking, usually within 24 to 48 hours, they'll will immediately or within a few minutes, they'll send you an email saying they've received your essay, and they'll let you know when they have comments on it. And then that's when you allow 24 to 48 hours for them to get back. Now remember, we're not turning in our final essay until February the 26th. But go ahead and get your feedback from Smart Thinking. And what we're going to do this week is this journal for your Smart Thinking or your English Studio feedback. Copy and paste your Smart Thinking feedback into your journal, or copy and paste the document that you shared with the English Studio, and then mention the comments that were made in your interview with the or in your discussion with the tutor in the English Studio. And then at the very end of the Smart Thinking or the English Studio feedback, give a couple of sentences explaining how you're going to use that or how you've already used that to revise your essay. Next week, we're going to have a whole week to revise, to edit, proofread, and get your use the feedback from the Smart Thinking or the English Studio, or from me, and you're going to put all of that into your polished final essay, and it'll be due next week, February 26th. So if you have any questions about anything, if you need some more explanation about anything, just give me a holler and I'll be glad to work with you to try to help clear things up. And I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.